Hi, welcome back to Quick Tips with Surf Simply. Today I want to talk to you about your hips. So this is one of the most common mistakes that I see in surfers, even quite experienced surfers. The single most important skill on a surfboard is the ability to move your weight backwards and forwards. If you can't do that, if you're just standing with your weight fairly static in one place on the board, you can't put your weight back in order to do carving turns. You can't put your weight forward in order to accelerate down a wave, and you can't put your weight back at the bottom of a steep wave in order to stop the board nose diving. So what happens is you end up going in a straight line a lot, missing a lot of waves, and nose diving on a lot of waves. So just as a conceptual goal to set for yourself, you want to say, how good am I at quickly and powerfully moving my weight backwards and forwards, up and down the board? Now, you literally don't even need to stand up to do this. You can practice this laying down in the white water, sliding back on your belly to do a turn, sliding forwards to accelerate, and really seeing where those different parts of the board are. When you're standing up on the board, if you're longboarding, of course, you're walking up and down the board. I'm sure you guys have all seen people doing that. Even when you're shortboarding, you actually are going to move your feet on the board a lot. There's this misconception that shortboarders have their feet static on the board. That's not true. Shortboarders move their feet around on the board all the time. But moving your feet isn't enough. Moving your feet is like do you remember those old radios where you have two dials and you have one that's like a really big dial and then one that's like the fine tuner? So moving your feet is like the big dial, but moving your weight in between your feet, that's the fine tuner, and that's really, really important because that allows you to do the really quick and powerful changes of weight that allow you to traverse really steep drops or do really powerful turns. Also, it allows you to move your back foot back, really far back, which you need to do in order to do floaters and carving turns like cutbacks. But it allows you to move your foot without moving your weight. You need to be able to have your weight sitting on your front foot while you move your back foot back, ready for the turn, ready to put your weight back onto it. And then once you're ready to do the turn, you can go back onto that back foot and perform that big turn. So here's what you need to do. You want to think about it in terms of your hips being that fine-tune button. You can turn your feet even slightly in so that your knees are dropping in towards each other, kind of a knock-kneed kind of style. And then you'll find you can move your hips backwards and forwards without leaning with your upper body, which puts you off balance. A good way to think about it is if you draw a line more or less through your nose and down through your belly button, straight down into the board, you should be able to move it so that that line is pointing at your front foot and then have that line pointing at your back foot. Unfortunately, the instinct is not to do that. The instinct is to have your knees pointing outwards in more of like a squat-like stance. We sometimes in surfing call it the poo stance. When your knees are pointing outwards, that works really well in almost every other physical activity that humans engage in. It's great. But with surfing, it leads you down the path of starting to lean with your upper body when you want to put your weight forwards and backwards. If you do that, what will happen very quickly is you'll find yourself falling off because you lose your balance when you lean backwards and forwards. And the intuitive way to fix that problem is not to correct your stance. The intuitive way to correct that problem is to just stop leaning, and that's when your progress as a surfer hits a wall and stops moving forwards. So drop those knees in together, loosen those hips up so you can move your weight backwards and forwards without moving your feet. We also want to move our feet as well, but we want to be able to move our weight radically, powerfully, and quickly without having to move our feet. It is possible to have your knees pointing outwards and to move your weight through your hips. You can do that. It's just less intuitive, and also it can be slightly dangerous for your knees, and you can have knee and ankle problems because if your feet are pointing out and you're moving and you're dropping your knees in and freeing up your hips, you tend to find that you collapse your knees sideways and your ankles sideways, and that can cause knee and ankle problems. So it's actually better if you can turn your feet in a little bit. That's a common mistake even with top level surfers. Okay, I hope that was a helpful one. That's kind of a nice one, not just a functional tip, but also a good one for looking a little bit more stylish because we all hate getting a photo back when we've got a big poo stance. Okay, I hope you join me next time, and yeah, go to surfsimply.com if you want to find out more about what we do. All right, bye.
See me cry.